I think that's really the key component there. The reason I like gold and silver is I don't trust my government. That's plain and simple it. And so that's why once I understood it, as little as I do about Bitcoin or Ethereum, it's open source. It means the Fed cannot mess with it, nor can the Treasury, nor can a politician. And that's kind of why I endorse both products. So I have two guys that are experts in the field, and we're going to drill down and figure out what is best for you. But we're not going to be superficial about it. So as many of you know is that I'm always been bullish on gold and silver. I own a little Ethereum and something else, but that's about all I know. Whereas with gold and silver, I've started a silver mine and I've started a gold mine. And for those of you who are too young to remember, back in 1933, President Roosevelt made it illegal for Americans to own gold. So I write about it in my book, Fake. In 1972, I was flying in Vietnam, and my rich dad wrote to me and he said, watch out, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. The world's going to change. And I was a college graduate and all this stuff, flying for the Marine Corps. I didn't even know what gold was because it was illegal for Americans to own gold, if you can imagine that. We're going to go deeper into the subjects of gold, silver, and Bitcoin, why they're the most important. I don't call them assets. I don't call them investments. I call them insurance plans right now. And it's insurance against the incompetence of the Fed and the Treasury. They're printing trillions of dollars. And if you're saving dollars, you might be in serious trouble.
And came across Bitcoin specifically around mining. So if you think of Bitcoin as a computer network, it's it is the strongest computer network in the world. And I really became fascinated with the idea of having a programmatic monetary policy and one that can't be influenced or manipulated by anyone. And so as I kind of dug deeper into what Bitcoin was, how it worked, what the major differences were between it and other currencies in the world, it just became very obvious to me that not only one, does it have a lot of the same sound money principles that gold has, there's also some digital components to it that make it attractive. And so have really spent the last number of years trying to, one, educate people, but also two, elaborate on a number of the macro issues at play that I think are starting to really kind of come to the forefront right now. And as you called it, I think gold and Bitcoin both are insurance to some degree. And so just doing my part, I guess, to help people see that.
Correct. And this is the big part about it. The reason I endorse gold and silver and cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin is they're outside the system. It's outside the Fed and the Treasury. And the average person has no idea what I just said. They don't know they don't know what the Fed is or the Treasury. How does gold not get sucked into the sucking sound called printing trillions of dollars and destroying the U.S. dollar? How do gold and silver kind of avoid that trap?
Well, it's gold and silver have been around, since recorded and even pre-recorded time, 4,000, 5,000 years, whatever. It's been currency, it's been money. And it was money before paper money was invented. But the whole idea of money that is immutable and can't be inflated away goes back even when there were gold and silver standards, the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, etc. And people tend to look back and say that we're different from those people, those guys back then. We're really not. Human nature has never changed. And human nature is such that in governments will overspend, through wars or entitlements or just bread and circuses. They're going to overspend and they're going to run up debts and deficits. And throughout human history, it's happened over and over again that governments have overspent and they had to debase the currency. Back when gold and silver were the currencies, they would do things. They would They would use alloys, cheapen the actual gold and silver in the coins, which is the same these days as printing more paper currency. You're creating more currency out of the base because the value of the silver exceeded the value of the coin. So when that happens, the government loses money with every coin it produces, and they can't make that up on volume. So that's what's happened throughout history, that the currency has been debased. They start printing more and more of the currency, and the value of gold and silver stays the same, and the value of the currency falls against.
Yeah, I think there's two key components to Bitcoin, especially for a conversation like this. The first is it's decentralized. And what that basically means is there's nobody who is the known creator. It was created by a pseudonymous person. And then also, there's no way to shut it down. And what I mean by shut it down is if you think of networks around the world or computer services, digital services, usually what ends up happening is if the government in any country doesn't like it, they go to the headquarters of that company, or they go find the founder and they say, hey, you've got to shut this down or we will jail you, fine you, etc. Well, with Bitcoin, the entire network is run through, in an overgeneralized manner, a bunch of computers around the world. So literally millions of computers in every geography in the world are all pointing at this network, and they're supporting it. And so even if one country was to go shut down every single computer in their country, you would need global coordination to shut the whole thing down. And we just don't think that will happen. And so when you get this decentralization, what it does is it leads to a very high level of resiliency, right? It's very anti-fragile. And what that decentralization also does is it keeps you outside of the system, meaning that nobody can manipulate the monetary policy, nobody can influence it, nobody can change the preset artificial cap in terms of the number of supply, et cetera, which we believe is going to be really, really valuable over time. The other advantage that Bitcoin has is that it's very verifiable, right, in both its scarcity and its monetary policy. So if you think right now, an exercise I've been running the last couple of days is I ask people, what's the Fed's balance sheet? And it's literally changing so quickly that people almost always answer incorrectly, right? We were at $4 trillion 6 weeks ago. Now we're at over $6 trillion, and we're literally printing hundreds of billions of dollars a week. But people don't actually know how much is being printed and how large the balance sheet is, other than once a week they get an update or they can check periodically. With Bitcoin, what ends up happening is I can tell you to the absolute Bitcoin how many were created today, where they all are, and also I can explain to you what the circulating supply is and how many more will be created or introduced into the supply at what time periods in the future. So it's not only understanding kind of structurally how the monetary policy works, but also having foresight or insight into what the monetary policy is in the future, which then gives confidence to people to know, hey, I know what the monetary policy decisions are in the future, and they can't be manipulated or changed. And therefore, I can go ahead and put my confidence in something that has that decentralized nature to it.
Well, again, you look at the track record. 4,000 years of protecting wealth through the inevitable debasement and destruction of paper money. It happens every time. It happens in every civilization throughout human history. It's going to happen. It's happening right now. And what we're seeing in this last crisis, this COVID crisis, and this tremendous policy response, is that the value of the dollar is going to be depreciated away even more quickly than any of us expected. We talk about what's going to happen over the next 5 years. Well, it's all happened over essentially 5 days as far as monetary policy, and everything's going into fast forward. It's going into turbo, and this destruction of the dollar is going much more quickly than we thought it would, and that's what makes gold and silver and Bitcoin and these kinds of alternative currencies, alternative money rather, so important right now.
And so one thing, ladies and gentlemen, the reason I support gold, silver, Bitcoin, I support anything that's outside the system. If you notice, I'm kind of a rebel in that way, but it took me going to Vietnam to kind of wake up, that we're being lied to by our own government. And I think that's really the key component there. The reason I like gold and silver is I don't trust my government. That's plain and simple it. And so that's why once I understood it, as little as I do about Bitcoin or Ethereum, it's open source. It means the Fed cannot mess with it, nor can the Treasury, nor can a politician. And that's kind of why I endorse both products. Because I just don't trust my government. I don't trust the Fed, I don't trust the Treasury, and I don't trust Wall Street.
He trusted the government to devalue the dollar and destroy the currency because he knew it happened over and over again throughout human history. It's going to happen again. And what happened was on the day in the summer of 1971, when Nixon announced that we were basically cutting the last tie to gold, and that it was illegal for American citizens to own gold, but other governments could send the United States Treasury dollar bills and get gold back. And they realized that if all the guns and butter spending that the government was doing, that the U.S. government was doing, that the dollar was being devalued and there were too many dollars floating around out there. So they started sending their dollars back over here and taking all of our gold out of Fort Knox. And the last day of 1974, they signed a law that returned the right of gold legalization to American citizens. And of course, the whole goal was, if they're going to debase the currency, if they're going to create all this inflation, then give people at least the right to own gold to protect themselves from what was coming, which they did. And it's been a long and storied history since then.
Yeah. So in 2008, a individual or a group of people operating under the name of Satoshi Nakamoto created the Bitcoin white paper. And it was basically a 9-page document that outlines electronic cash, right? Peer-to-peer electronic cash. And it talks about what it is, why it's important, how it works, and kind of all the things that you would need to know about a new technical system. And it's written in relatively easy to understand language. I highly suggest anyone go and read that original Bitcoin white paper. And then in January 3rd, 2009, Bitcoin, the network, was launched. And basically the marketing that was done for this was very kind of organic, in that Satoshi Nakamoto sent an email to a list of cryptographers, right? Kind of these cypherpunks, if you will. So kind of going with the rebel theme. And what they basically said was, look, if this could grow and gain adoption, it could be very powerful, right? And if you go back and you can read a lot of their original communication around this time, there was a number of people who had incredible foresight to realize, hey, if we could get adoption and get that decentralization, right? The more people that participate in the network, the more resilient this is. There is a separation of state and money. And that could be a really big idea if that idea's time has come. And so Satoshi Nakamoto, over the next couple of years, continued to work on Bitcoin, communicate with people, and then eventually essentially stepped aside and disappeared. And what a lot of people believe is that Satoshi Nakamoto is not the real name of the creator. Instead, it was a pseudonym, if you will. And what they were basically really trying to do is protect themselves, right? Kind of the most selfless act is for the creator not to take the credit. And so I think Bitcoin specifically, you'll hear a lot of times people talk about like the Bitcoin ethos, right? I think a lot of gold investors and folks who believe in sound money have a very specific set of beliefs, both about the existing system, but also about why they have the assets that they have. I think Bitcoin kind of follows that same trend as well.
So when did it kind of first go up? When was it open for investing? That's my question now.
Yeah, so the beauty in the beginning was January 3rd, 2009 was when the Bitcoin network kind of went live. And in the beginning, the only way to acquire Bitcoin was you had to mine it, right? And the way that mining essentially works is you have to contribute computing power to the network. You have to run the network. And in exchange for running the network, you get a portion of Bitcoin back on a daily or more frequent basis. And so in order to incentivize kind of more people participating in the network, they earn Bitcoin. And so the very first people couldn't go to an exchange. They couldn't go to their friend and buy any. They actually had to work, right, or contribute power in order to earn it. Now, over time, there's been a lot of infrastructure built around Bitcoin, everything from cryptocurrency exchanges to things like GBTC, which is a trust that's publicly traded, and other products. But I think that part of the value in, again, instilling the confidence in something like Bitcoin, this new idea, was having a very organic kind of creation and original adoption that wasn't thrown about all in the media and stuff. It was many years before anyone had even written about Bitcoin. And so it allowed for a number of years people to buy into the narrative, to understand how it technically worked, and to start holding an asset that eventually now has grown into, $100+ billion market cap.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's two pieces to this. So the first is, Bitcoin is the most popular cryptocurrency. And the reason why that's important is it's all about confidence, right? Money is a belief system. And the more people that buy into the belief system, the stronger that the value of it is. And obviously, there are now 2,000, 3,000 other cryptocurrencies. And I always kind of make a point to ensure people understand that Bitcoin, in my opinion, is the most important one. It's the most popular and has kind of all of the things that you want in sound money or sound currency. The other piece of this is a lot of people ask me, like, how do I think about Bitcoin in terms of my wealth, right, and my financial portfolio? And I think people are surprised when I say I look at converting US dollars to Bitcoin as literally protecting my wealth. And I think a lot of people in gold and silver think the same way, yep. Right? Is rather than hold this asset that literally is going to be devalued, I want to convert it to something that has protection based on the structure of the asset, right? And I think gold, silver, Bitcoin, et cetera, all have that. And so I think that there's a lot of similarities between Bitcoin and gold. There's also some differences, but the similarities around sound money principles and providing that protection to people is really important, because I do believe that when you have that buy-in on the belief system, and then you can't be inflated away or manipulated by a central bank, it provides certain protections that can create a lot of wealth or protect the wealth that you already have.
Right.
Absolutely. There's a lot of ways to invest in gold and silver, and people get confused. But very simply, you're right. They need insurance. They need physical metals, silver, gold, primarily in their possession or accessible, not in a bank vault, not in a safe deposit box, because one of the things you're insuring against is a bank holiday. So you can get these coins through bullion dealers. Don't buy collectible proof coins. Don't fall for a lot of scams out there, like trying to get proof coins in your IRA and things like that. Buy simple gold bullion coins, American gold eagles. You can do old silver coins. They call them junk coins in the coin trade, are a great way to do it because they're small, easily divisible. You can check prices online, find a dealer you can deal with regularly, and someone you can trust.
Yeah, look, I think that's one of the big things, right? Is it sounds really scary. Hey, how am I going to go buy Bitcoin? Because whether people like it or not, ordering physical gold or silver and it shows up in the mail at your house just seems much easier, right? And with this, you're going to have to go on to one of the cryptocurrency exchanges, mainly either Coinbase or Gemini are two of the more popular ones in the United States. And then you can go ahead and sign up for an account and then buy Bitcoin there. Important to buy Bitcoin, not Bitcoin Cash or any of the other names that use Bitcoin. Well, there's only one Bitcoin. The rest of them are scams. Right. And similar to the gold and silver markets, where you get kind of the real thing and then you get a bunch of the scams. Again, when there's value being created, all the scammers show up to try to, distract people from that value. And so I think that, making sure you buy Bitcoin and Bitcoin only is important. And then the other thing that you can do is, if you want to avoid using those cryptocurrency exchanges, you can buy something like GBTC. So GBTC is a publicly traded trust. You can put it in your IRA or something like that. You don't actually take possession of the Bitcoin, and kind of all of the security that comes with that. You're just owning a stock like you would, a gold ETF or something like that. But it's just Bitcoin underlying it. And so those are the main two ways I think people get exposure right now.
Quick question. How many different cryptos are there now?
Well, there's like over 3,000 of them in terms of all the different projects. But to kind of put it in perspective, the entire crypto market on a market cap basis, Bitcoin is somewhere around 65% of it by itself. So it's, kind of by far the most dominant, and then the other 2,999 or whatever it is make up the remainder of the market cap.
It moves after gold. It moves for the same reasons as gold. If you believe gold is going up, if you like gold, you should love silver because it's going to move further percentage-wise in gold.
So I think the run is actually going to be in silver if gold moves, right?
That's correct. That's a good analysis and good bet. I'm betting the same way, actually.
Yeah, that's the crystal ball.
One of the things to understand about Bitcoin and gold, the difference is Bitcoin has much more volatility, right? Brian mentioned the kind of how stable gold has been for 5,000 years, and it's done the job that people wanted it to do. And so in times of kind of economic chaos or these liquidity crises like we saw, gold only dropped 10 or 12%. It kind of did its job, right, in terms of retaining its value. Bitcoin dropped 50%, right, which is obviously very, very volatile. When the markets drop, that works against Bitcoin and works in gold's favor. I think when the market goes up, then that volatility helps Bitcoin, right? And for that reason, there's something called the Bitcoin halving that's coming up. It would be similar to, let's say, 50% of gold miners going offline all at once, right? It's the way to think about it. And so that has historically caused a very rapid price appreciation. You get a pretty significant price appreciation due to that halving event that's going on, plus the macro backdrop.
Oh, I got goosebumps thinking about it.
Look, both Bitcoin and gold and silver, right? I think all three of them. This is the setup that they want, where the government is printing a lot of money, and those have sound money principles. And so we'll see what happens.
It's trillions. They're really helping us all. Thank God. God bless the Fed and the Treasury.